Hello everyone, this is Anushri
And this is Medha, and we on behalf of the Beaming Notes team can't thank you enough for your overwhelming support over the past few years.
It is because of your love and appreciation that we have been able to launch our very own YouTube channel.
And we need your support this time as well.
So go ahead, hit that subscribe button and show us some love.
And now let's head over to the video.
Hello everyone and welcome to Beaming Notes. And in this video, we're going to take a look at the solved questions of The Last Lesson, a story by Alphonse Daudet. Solved questions. Solved short questions. What does Mr. Hamel say about the importance of language to an enslaved people? Hamel advises his students to guard the French language from the onslaught of the invaders' influence and not to forget it ever. When people are enslaved, he thinks as long as they hold fast to their language, they have key to their prison. What does Hamel announce at the start of the lesson? How does this change Franz's feelings towards his school? Hamel, the teacher, informed the students in a deep, solemn voice that it was their last French lesson in the school, as German invaders encroached that part of France. Henceforth, only German would be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master would come conduct classes from the next day. As this was going to be the last French class, he wanted all of his students to pay him more attention. The moment Franz knew this would be his last French class, he felt sorry for not learning his lessons well. His books, which seemed a garbage heap and a burden earlier, were now his old friends. His structure of feelings about Hamel also changed drastically. No longer had he remembered how strict Hamel was and how punishing his classes were. What a thunderclap these words to me. What were the words that shocked and surprised the narrator? Hamel told the children in a solemn voice that it was their last French lesson. Henceforth, only German would be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master would arrive the next day, and therefore he wanted his students to be little more attentive in his final class. He had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. What led Franz to make this remark? Franz noticed how sad Hamel was on having to leave a place which he held so dear for 40 long years and not being allowed to teach French any longer. But he kept a tab on his emotions and performed his duties faithfully. He called off the class after listening to every lesson to the last. Hamel's dignified stance and his loyalty to his duty forced Franz to such a realization. What were the unfamiliar sights Franz noticed as he entered the classroom? Usually when the school begins, it's full of chaos. There was a great bustle created by the sound of the opening and closing of desks. Lessons repeated in unison, the teacher's ruler rapping on the table and so on. But today it was quiet and calm. Franz noticed that all his classmates were seated in their places and that Mr. Hamel was dressed formally. He was surprised to see that the backbenches that were usually empty were occupied by the villagers. Moreover, when Franz was expecting to be scolded by Mr. Hamel for being late to class, to his surprise, he was rather kind to him and asked him to go to his place. Who did Mr. Hamel blame when Franz was unable to answer a question on French participles? Mr. Hamel does not scold Franz for not being able to answer correctly. Instead, he says that it is because that people put off learning till tomorrow that now they do not know their own language properly. He regrets that parents prefer to send their children to work instead of sending them to school. He also blamed himself for not fulfilling his duty as a teacher sincerely. How did Franz's feelings about Mr. Hamel change after the announcement? Franz was genuinely in dread of a scolding from Mr. Hamel as he was late to class and he did not prepare his lessons properly. He was not very fond of Mr. Hamel, but after the announcement, he actually paid attention to Mr. Hamel and was surprised to see that he actually understood every word he said. He felt sorry for not learning his lessons properly. His books that he seemed to hate suddenly became something that was precious to him. The idea that he won't see Mr. Hamel again made him forget his crankiness. Solved long questions. Is it possible to carry pride in one's language too far? Explain linguistic chauvinism. Linguistic chauvinism is a xenophobic feeling that seduces one to believe that his language is better than others in terms of pedigree and relevance. This falsified belief propels a man, a race, and even a country to downplay language of others. Powerful nations want to obliterate the language of weaker ones and impinge their language onto others. A language is the sole preserver of history, culture, and arts of a society. Attack comes first on language. To defend their act of linguistic aggression, powerful ones air the theory of linguistic unity, which they believe will hold together the country. But instead of bringing unity and winning over others as friends, this superiority complex invites disintegration and friction. The linguistic community whose language is under threat mounts a strong challenge to preserve their own language. So the rhetoric of linguistic singularity cannot gloss over linguistic chauvinism of the powerful. What do you think is the theme of the story The Last Lesson? What is the reason behind its universal appeal? Though the story discussed is located in a particular village of Alsace district of France, which had passed into Prussian hands, the story definitely has a universal appeal. It highlights the penchant of the colonizer to steamroll the culture of the colonized, to ruin their existence, to stomp their identity. Taking away mother tongue and forcing others to accept a foreign tongue is the first step of such colonial aggression. To combat such advancement, one needs to embrace his own language. Mr. Hamel, the French teacher of the school conducting his last class, passes this advice to his young students. New rulers cancel all the French classes and introduce German classes to the school. But even before such constant pressure from rulers, French people can uphold their flag if they remember their language, which is the bulwark of their culture. The theme definitely does not remain confined to the classroom or the Alsace district. Rather, it gathers a universal significance as a route map to battle colonial aggression.
So, did you find the video helpful? If so, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and continue to encourage us more to deliver more such poem analysis and English language tips to help you to get set and ready for your examinations. All the best.